Remember, Trump said his whole shtick during the campaign was the other side, Democrats, are warmongers, and there were no wars. He said at every campaign stop, I never started a war. He's starting a war with our allies. It's an economic war in which you, Mr. and Mrs. America, are the soldiers because you're going to pay at the grocery store and you're going to pay when you buy appliances and cars. But he's starting wars for no reason. He chose these wars.
Hello and welcome to the Bulwark Podcast. I'm your host, Tim Miller. It's back for the old timers, for the OGs. You might remember Will Saletan Mondays. Well, they're back right now. Bill Crystal's on vacation. I'm here with my colleague, Will Saletan. What's up, Will?
There's no vacation from Trumpism, Tim. It's just everywhere you go.
No, he's been texting me. There's definitely no vacation for him mentally, but he does get one day off the podcast. I do want to start. Can I start with something positive, though?
Go ahead, man.
I don't know if you'll find it positive, but I'm feeling good about a couple of things this morning. All right?
Tell me.
Here's number one. This is a shit show. This is a total shit show. And like, I knew it would be a shit show. We told everybody it would. But, there was always a chance that Trump would get in there and, decide not to do anything, right? And just kind of bleat and, like, get people to call him sir and not actually do anything and take credit for things that were already kind of percolating positively from the Biden administration. That was one option that could have happened. But instead, we have JVL this morning in the Triad predicting a stock market crash. And Elon and all of the topics we're about to go over is them messing things up. I don't know. Can we not have some pleasure in that, knowing that they are as bad as we thought they would be?
Wait, this is where we are, that like the good is bad?
Yeah. Yeah, that's where we are.
This is where and Tim, is it Schadenfreude, or is it that you think that there's something salutary about the pain that will lead to healing?
I know I'm not about healing through pain. No, thank you for saying that. Yeah, it's partially Schadenfreude. It's partially just kind of like the solace in knowing that you are correct. The solace in knowing that we weren't leading people astray. That it was that there's something to that. There's a little bit of joy in seeing other people's pain, but the bad people, the MAGA people, not this. There will be some collateral damage. Unfortunately, that's not what I'm happy about. But just their failures is kind of giving me a little joy. Right. No, is that wrong?
Well, I don't know. It's a little bit of the tree falls in the forest problem. If you and I are right objectively that this is insane and destructive, but the Republicans keep winning elections doing it, what consolation is there in that?
I don't know. Personal validation. All that matters is solipsism. All that matters is having my own brain. Okay, I knew that you'd be on the other side of that, but I figured some of the listeners would be on my side. I'm enjoying it. There's another thing. It was related. I don't know. Ezra Klein, you might have heard of him. He's kind of a minor columnist, and we might have him on the pod again soon. He was he had a piece over the weekend that said this: Trump is acting like a king because he's too weak to govern like a president. He's trying to substitute perception for reality. He's hoping that perception then becomes reality. That can only happen if we believe him. It was part of a longer monologue about just like, this is not actually the actions of somebody who is going to take over the government in a gradual and effective way. Like, these are the actions of somebody that doesn't know what they're doing and is trying to continue the fraud that he's perpetrated on the country for a long time, so that it covers up his fundamental political weakness. What's to Ezra's positive spin? These are the last two positive items of the podcast. Just saying. Yeah,
I don't know about this. First of all, on the perception versus reality thing, look, one, at some point, reality only matters if it intrudes. And, we went through this election where the reality was Trump was an idiot and he was going to do all this damage. And he created a perception that, you saw the polls. People believed he was a good president. Like, after COVID, after all that craziest.
Well, 4 years later, people are stupid and have short memories.
Yeah, but
they didn't think so.
If that's the perception, and they keep, then the Republicans keep getting to implement the crazy policies. I will say, I do think, and I know you and Scott are going to talk about the tariffs, but it is a good thing that very early in this process, he's doing among the stupid things that he was going to do and is doing, he's doing one that's going to hurt a lot of people quickly, and will make an impact, I think, on perception. And at that point, the polls start to decline and all that, and Republicans might pay attention to that.
Yeah. I don't know. Who was I talking to this about last night? Oh, I was talking to JJ McCullough. We did a YouTube video on this topic, and he's Canadian. He was like, he's like, won't the MAGAs not care? Even if they're, I guess they're probably not even buying guacamole, whatever, even if their maple syrup for their pancakes is going up, and won't they just think that that's, whatever, part of Trump's grand plan? And I was like, yeah, but the problem is he got a lot of votes from people that did not have those strong ties, right? That were annoyed by prices and had some, annoyances about the cultural shift left of the Democrats, and maybe they cared about crime or immigration, right? But like, there were people that are not in the cult that were for him, and I do think that some of them are going to maybe experience the consequences of the vote, but we'll see.
I would like to believe that, but I just want to put on the table the dark theory that I have about all of this, which is maybe Donald Trump and his MAGA party are really bad at governing, but really good at winning elections. And they're really, part of how they're really good at doing it is blaming and scapegoating. And we saw that with COVID, right? We saw like this disaster happens, Trump grossly mismanages it, leads to many more deaths than were necessary. But he talks about the China virus. He blames everybody else. Sorry?
Then he lost, though.
Yeah, well, he lost that election, but then he won the next one.
All right, well, I don't like this role switch, okay? I'm the pony. I'm fighting the pony. You're trying to bring me into darkness. I don't take it. Just let me have it.
Tim, your pony is that things suck. That's not a pony.
Yeah, it's a pony for me. All right. Things are getting darker from here, so I hope everybody enjoyed that segment. Our colleague Bill Crystal wasn't so much on vacation that he couldn't write a newsletter this morning. So he wrote about the scandals that are currently embroiling the administration that are worse than Watergate. He starts with the firings at the FBI. For people that have not been following this, there were, I guess, 6 high-level FBI officials that were escorted out of the building late last week. Then there were other FBI officials that were involved in the Trump administration that people that they were trying to have relieved of their duties. But the acting FBI director, Brian Driscoll, actually refused to agree with that request. And in a message to staff on Saturday, he reminded FBI agents of their rights to due process and review in accordance with existing policy and law. We had a letter at the Bulwark this morning that comes from a Society of Former FBI Agents, which is not a group that is particularly political. And they are saying that this is an obvious disruption to FBI operations, the degree to which it can't be overstated. The forced retirement of director, deputy director, and now all 5 executive assistant directors. They say that this extreme disruption is occurring at a time when the terrorist threat around the world has never been greater. It's putting us at great risk. And we have basically, the weekend of the long knives at the FBI. And this is coming to a head with the Kash Patel vote coming up in the Senate.
Yeah. Well, so the big picture on this to me is, you and I are like trying to have a, friendly conversation about this, but this is extremely serious. And what's basically happened is that a crime boss has taken over law enforcement. He's president of the United States. He's taken over the Justice Department, the FBI, he's putting his accomplices in charge of the Justice Department, the FBI. Bondi, Patel didn't get Gates, but he's replacing all these other officials. And this is just an extension of the January 6th pardon. So the pardons were these thugs on Trump's behalf beat up cops to try to overthrow an election. So it's anti-democratic, it's fascist, it's a coup, but it's also an attack on law enforcement by criminals. The guy who sent them there then becomes president, and he pardons all of the thugs who beat up the cops, right? And then he goes into the FBI and starts purging anybody. So they've demanded lists of anybody at the agency and anybody in the Justice Department, I believe, like thousands of people who were involved in any of the prosecutions of the criminals who worked for Trump. So Trump's got this paramilitary organization. He's put them back out on the street, and he's now going after purging the law enforcement officials who prosecuted them successfully in front of juries, right? They were objectively convicted. So, it's not clear to me how far this goes. And just to come back to our original question, Tim, it's not clear to me at what point the American public is going to care about this. If Trump is being Mr. Law and Order against immigrants, is the public going to care that he's letting these criminals out and prosecuting the prosecutors?
Yeah, I don't really care if the public cares at this point. It's like, that's a problem for fall of 2026. I think that the substantive element here that you talked about, like at the beginning, is about how scary it is. I mean, I think you're smart to tie this to the pardons, and we had another story out over the weekend. I guess it's the fourth person that was pardoned that has had another altercation with police. This one is Dylan Harrington. He was nicknamed the MAGA Lumberjack. He was arrested for rape. He was raping a woman who was blacked out and did not consent. He had pleaded guilty to assaulting, resisting, and impeding officers, was sentenced to 37 months in prison, and Trump had pardoned him. So you have that. You have the paramilitary organization, you said. You have this unlawful firing of career law enforcement, federal law enforcement officials, high-level law enforcement officials. We talked about this with Andrew Weissman on Friday, just about like how important it is to institutional knowledge to have these people and judgment, given the most challenging cases. We've gotten rid of all those people. And then JVL tied it also to what is happening with Elon Musk, right? Where Elon Musk is now taking over the Treasury Department, going into USAID, having his little 20-year-old DOGE officials like try to bully career officials, get access to classified information, get access to personal financial information. And JVL's point is like, look, if you've cleansed the law enforcement agencies of anyone who would be willing to investigate members of the own administration, then members of your own administration can act with impunity and can commit illegal actions, which Elon Musk is doing.
Right. So all of this is an attack on the rule of law. Now, in the context of violent crime, Trump's pose and the Republican pose is they're the party of law and order. They stand for the cops. They back the blue against the criminals. Now, we've established that's not true because of the January 6 pardons, the purge of the FBI. What's actually going on is Trump's and the Republican Party's distinction is between foreign and domestic, right? We're against foreign lawbreakers. We're against people who entered this country illegally. We're against someone who steals a tube of toothpaste who came from overseas. But domestically, we're happy to pardon the people who committed violent crimes. Let me take this over to your point about DOGE, though.
Yeah.
So here we have a private organization. So you can explain this more. You probably know this better than I do, Tim. DOGE's legal status, right? They're not a government department, right? None of this is authorized by Congress. This is one guy, Donald Trump, having won one election, basically usurping power, right? They're taking over. Congress appropriates, Congress establishes programs. The executive decides, no, you know what? I don't care what the Article 1 branch did. I'm gonna, usurp this. I'm gonna end this program, cut off these funds. Not only am I gonna do it, I'm the elected guy. I'm gonna give my buddy, who's not even a government official, right, access. Right? These people coming in from Musk, what authorization do they have? So Trump's basic position is, never mind all of the rules that were established about who has the right to have access to these payment systems, who established these programs. I won this one election, and therefore anybody I choose, I can send in to run the government. So it's kind of democracy because he got elected, but it's illiberal democracy and it's anti-rule of law democracy. It is authoritarianism with one election behind it.
Yeah. I mean, here's just one example of what was happening with USAID. This is from CNN. Officials with Musk's so-called Department of Government Efficiency sparked a tense clash with USAID administrators over the weekend by demanding access to its physical headquarters and digital systems, threatening to call security when the agency refused. The incident led to two more senior USAID security officials being placed on leave, and DOGE ultimately succeeded in getting classified information. I mean, Like that is hungry, right? Like we're doing this thing where it's like we're having these conversations where it's like, are they on the path to Hungary? Are we on the path to Russia? Or what are they going to try to do? How much of this is just PR? How much of this is, whatever, Trump bleeding, illiberal things? And like this is unelected people that I assume don't have security clearances or background checks yet because they're just random officials with DOGE going in and bullying existing high-level national security officials with clearances to get classified information, and to then, and then obviously the next step of this is to then shut down USAID, which is coming, which reports they are coming. USAID signs were taken down from the Reagan building. They're going to put it under Secretary of State, I guess. But that's blatantly not legal. I mean, it's thug. Right. It is thug autocracy. That's what that is.
Can I pull on your thread there a minute about Hungary?
Yeah,
because there's a direct connection here with USAID, right? The Orban regime and the Putin regime hate USAID, and they've spoken out against it, and they don't like this whole, what are you guys doing promoting civil society and other, you're interfering in our internal affairs. So undermining USAID in particular on Trump's part is part and parcel of his, de facto alliance with the authoritarians of the world, right? Here's this annoying agency.
Yeah, throw China in there too, obviously.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, there's an absolutely direct connection. I mean, USAID basically does, good things liberals like. The whole idea of international development is like something. Trump's isolationism, America first, a lot of it is we're tired of being the good guys. We're tired of giving things to other people. We're tired of helping other people. We're just going to focus on helping ourselves. And while we're at it, we're going to dismantle this agency that annoys our authoritarian friends.
What kind of night is it? A single, double, triple, or a quad? I'm not talking about caffeine or alcohol. I'm talking about Sol's out-of-office microdosed THC gummies. This podcast is sponsored by Sol. Sol's new out-of-office gummies are perfectly microdosed with hemp-derived THC and CBD to give any day that chillin' on the beach vibe. I was looking for that chillin' on the beach vibe on Saturday night because I was over at my buddy's house. I had a big day ahead of me Sunday. Lots happening out there in the news. Didn't want to deal with the hangover. We had the kids running around, and what a nice thing to do is when you have 7-year-old girls running around screaming, pretending like they're cats. A gummy that gives you that chilling on the beach vibe. Now I'm not a quad man, so be careful out there, everybody. For me, maybe just a 5 milligram. That'll do the trick. Come home, watch some Severance, watch a little bit of Nuggets on DVR. Big win over the Hornets. Made for a nice little evening, pleasant evening. A little break from everything that was happening on the news. Not getting annoyed by the high-pitched squeals of young girls. It's great. It's all positive with the out-of-office gummies. The out-of-office gummies help get you that much-needed me time at the end of the day or during the day. They're convenient and delicious. They give you that warm, fuzzy, euphoric microdose feeling without sending you to the moon. You can go for a jog, watch your favorite TV show, or head out to a party, whatever floats your boat. Sol was founded 5 years ago by brother and sister duo Mike and Angie Lee. Mike's a former world-ranked professional boxer, and Angie is an author and professional speaker. They have the desire to create natural alternatives to medication that tackle problems they deal with themselves, like sleeplessness, anxiety, focus, and pain. And Sol's products are grown right here in the USA. Great news with the tariffs. You don't have to worry about that. So, if you want to feel your best, head to getsol.com and use code THEBulwark for 30% off your order. That's 30% off your order using code THEBulwark. One last time, getsol.com and code THEBulwark for 30% off. Hey, y'all, if you love this podcast and want to listen to all Bulwark podcasts ad-free, join Bulwark Plus today. You can click the link in this description. You'll get the best politics newsletters in the business, and you can become a Bulwark Plus member right now. We'd appreciate it. Yeah, we'll go ahead and continue down that path because you said you wanted to talk about the geopolitics of the trade wars, because, and obviously we'll get into this more with Scott, but that is that all ties together, right? I mean, this is an effort to completely isolate America from our allies, from having influence in parts of the world, where there's competition for influence with the more authoritarian regimes, and the trade war is directly connected to shutting down USAID in that sense, and it's also directly connected to the coming threats to NATO that we're going to be seeing in the coming months.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me just sort of sketch. I know you and Scott are going to do the economics of this.
Sure.
Just want to do the geopolitics of this. So there's the NATO pulling out, threatening to pull out of NATO, which he's, I'm abandoning Article 5. I won't defend you. There's the EU. Trump just said twice in the last 3 days. Trump said he's going to. They asked him about. He said, "Am I going to impose tariffs on the European Union?" Absolutely. He said that twice. They also are threatening, of course, Panama and Greenland. Trump said twice in the last 2 days, we're going to take it back, referring to the Panama Canal. We're going to take it back. Okay. Greenland, lots of threats to Greenland. We're picking a war with Denmark, of all things. J.D. Vance was on TV on Sunday saying that we're going to take more of a territorial interest in Greenland, a territorial interest. So basically what we have is America first, Trump, Vance, means that we are going to target all of our enemies. We're going to pick fights with all of our enemies. Remember, Trump said his whole shtick during the campaign was the other side, Democrats, are warmongers, and there were no wars. He said at every campaign stop, I never started a war. He's starting a war with our allies. It's an economic war in which you, Mr. and Mrs. America, are the soldiers because you're going to pay at the grocery store and you're going to pay when you buy appliances and cars. But he's starting wars for no reason. He chose these wars.
And he's put together a team to help him with it. Another news item I really want to spend some time on is a gentleman by the name of Darren Beattie. I don't know which one it is. Doesn't really matter. He's the new acting undersecretary of state for public diplomacy. I want to go through the hit list here on Beattie, and then we'll kind of tie it back to the point you're making. Beattie loves to tell people to take a knee. I want to see if you can notice any trend here. Well, here's our new acting undersecretary of state for public diplomacy. Tim Scott needs to learn his place and take a knee to MAGA. Black Lives Matter must take a knee to MAGA. Ibram Kendi must take a knee to MAGA. Kay Coles James of Heritage Foundation needs to learn her natural place and take a knee to MAGA. Any guess on the race of Kay Coles James? Black. Yeah. Tim Scott, Kay Coles James. Conservatives, they need to take a knee. They need to learn their place, natural place, and take a knee to MAGA. So this guy is really... he was fired from the first Trump administration for his associations with white nationalists. He was one of the only people too racist to be fired from the first Trump administration. He's been brought back. He's also pro-Uyghur genocide, essentially, or at least a big excuser of the Uyghur genocide, and talking about how he said that we treat American rural whites worse than China treats the Uyghur minority. And then this takes us to South Africa. There's an interesting statement from Trump yesterday morning, rather. South Africa is confiscating land and treating certain classes of people very badly. It is a bad situation that the radical left media doesn't want to so much as mention. The United States won't stand for it. I will be cutting off all future funding to South Africa until a full investigation of this situation has been completed. Beattie had said this in the past. The whole concept of modern South Africa is absurd, doomed to fail from the beginning. South Africa was the first modern nation to be refounded on the anti-white principles of critical race theory. Musk is also from South Africa, you might remember, and his attack on USAID may also have something to do with his feelings about the South African leadership. USAID had spent a lot of money helping Black folks suffering from apartheid in South Africa. So, I mean, it's not exactly subtle, Will.
No, it's not. And it's part of, when I talk about Trump being a fascist or this being a fascist movement, people think, okay, that's extreme language. Let's not compare him to the Nazis and stuff like that. And, look, we don't have people in, murder camps at this point. But the fascism, part of fascism is ethnic demagoguery, ethnic scapegoating. And that we're seeing lots of that already in the first couple of weeks of this administration. You mentioned Darren Beattie got fired before. Being a white supremacist, being friends with white supremacists, preaching that stuff, that used to be too politically toxic for Trump. He thinks that's an advantage now. They're selling that now. And Tim, a little bit back to your point about politics. It's still amazing to me that in the 2024 election, Trump got, I believe in the VoteCast survey, he got 16% of the black vote, and he got 43% of the Latino vote. And, a lot of white liberals said, what the hell? Like, how can you vote for someone who's so overtly bigoted? And I would like to believe that at some point this will register and those numbers will start to return to recognizing that Donald Trump and his party are enemies of, threats to, insulters of, degraders of minority communities. This guy has an amazing history. His campaign, remember the birtherism, Judge Curiel, a Latino judge, was like Mexican heritage, Kamala Harris being a DEI hire, all that stuff. At some point, this needs to register.
Yeah, I don't know. The Marco Rubio side of it is pretty interesting to me, too. See, he had to hire Beattie, right? And Marco Rubio ran in 2016, as I recall, on kind of a compassionate conservatism updated platform. And Marco Rubio's hired the guy who said that Kay Coles James of the Heritage Foundation needs to learn her natural place and take a knee to MAGA. And this is the type of person that Marco wants as his undersecretary, somebody who is posting just the most overt, obvious, racist bile over and over again about conservative black leaders. Not that it's okay to do racist stuff about Ibram Kendi, but like this guy is so through the looking glass that he's posting racist shit about Tim Scott and Kay Coles James. And Marco is like, I want this man to be my undersecretary. And right. I just think that the degree of the corruption, of the corruption of the soul of these people is pretty remarkable.
Right. Well, it's not clear to me what role little Marco had in this and whether this is sort of.
You assume he had to okay it. It's his undersecretary.
They're okaying anything Trump does at this point, right? And Tim, is this to balance things out? We did appoint a Latino Secretary of State, so let's balance it out with an anti-Latino, with a white racist.
I guess, yeah. I guess that's their version of DEI.
Remind me, what's the job that Beattie's getting here?
Undersecretary of State for Public Diplomacy.
Public diplomacy. So here we have not just that we have these bigots in office, but we put them in jobs where they're supposed to represent the United States overseas. So we're going to go to Africa, we're going to go to Asia, we're going to go to Latin America with these people. Here, let's put a bigot in charge of public diplomacy. Let's put Carrie Lake, one of the best known liars, like recidivist liars in our country, in charge of the Voice of America. Right? There couldn't be a bigger middle finger to the world. And we're basically saying, why should you trust us any more than you would trust the propaganda coming out of regimes in Russia or China?
I want to go back to Elon. We mentioned this, but the Treasury story is really something. DOGE, I guess, in Elon with the approval of new incoming Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who was everybody told me was the normie. As a normal, this is the guy we don't have to worry about. I guess he's given Elon carte blanche to interfere in the payment system. Among the things that he said that he wants to put a stop payment on is payment to Lutheran religious services, because the Lutheran services they're providing services for immigrants. Obviously, we wouldn't want to do that. So, the Christian the presidency brought in by Christians who great evangelical Christians like Franklin Graham and Jerry Falwell Jr. They're shutting down all payments to the Lutheran religious services. Anyway, JVL has an even darker take on what's happening. He writes this: Elon Musk allegedly has control of the system the U.S. government uses to disburse congressionally mandated payments. Musk claims that he's personally putting a stop to payments he does not like. First, this obviously could not happen unless the FBI had been neutered because these actions are badly illegal. Of course, if the DOJ and FBI refuse to investigate the crimes, are they really crimes at all? But then he goes on to talk about how, Musk wants X to be a payment system. And, his dark vision of what's possibly coming is that Elon wants to get his own private businesses involved in payments from the government. You would have said that was a crazy conspiracy to even suggest. But boy, I don't know what they'd be doing differently if they were planning on doing that.
Yeah, well, that's just oligarchy, right? This happens in other countries. This wasn't supposed to happen here, that the guy gets elected, puts his billionaire friend in charge of the government, gives him special access. I think in Russia, the oligarchs, before some of them tangled with Putin, had this kind of leverage. Scott Bessent and these normies, though, they're no protection. Because, remember, Scott Bessent got that job for one reason, which was that he claimed that all the stock market increases under Joe Biden were because people expected Donald Trump to be president, right? And that was just, he flattered his way into the job. He's a total yes man, right? If Elon's goons, I don't know what to call these guys, they maybe not carrying cudgels, but they work for Elon. They come in and they say, we want access to this stuff. Here, sign this piece of paper. Scott Bessent, he's not in that job because he's brave. He's a coward like the rest of them. And the entire party is populated with people who do bad things or people who are too weak to stand up to those who do bad things. And Bessent is one of those. So of course he's going to sign that.
All right. So we were messaging about our topics for today. The worse than Watergate firings at the FBI, shuttering of USAID, this racist that's going into the Secretary of State, Elon taking over the Treasury, the January 6th pardon guys raping people, et cetera, the tariff, the trade war, et cetera, et cetera. So we were discussing potential topics. You said to me, also the outrage is not high enough about what he's doing on DEI. So I just figured I'd let you cook on that for a little bit too.
Yeah, I don't even know how to distill this. It's amazing to me that there's a plane crash. Donald Trump steps up to a microphone, says without any evidence that this is he blames DEI, says that the crash is all about being smart. Now, lots of the obvious explanations were offered to Trump. Well, we have a shortage of air traffic controllers. And what was the other one? I can't remember. But the point is, he dismissed there was technology, there was a question of that. He dismissed the obvious explanations. He says, no, it's because we don't have smart enough people. And the reason we don't have smart enough people is because of DEI. And then when pressed for a little more detail, he starts talking about a lawsuit on the part of white applicants who didn't get jobs at FAA, that they got discriminated against. So basically, the very clear message is this plane crashed because we hired black and brown people at the FAA. Now, this is bullshit. There's no evidence for it. And statistically, the numbers have changed very little in the last several years. But if you go into a situation where something bad happened and you say it is the fault of hiring black and brown people, which is the message here, and you have no evidence for that, that is straight up bigotry. That is the kind of scapegoating that authoritarian fascist regimes do. He didn't say Jews. He didn't even say explicitly that we hired black people and they caused this.
Yeah, he did explicitly, like he was citing people with mental health issues and paraplegics and other weird stuff like that. But yeah, the implication is obvious.
That was his first answer. His first answer was like, there's this stuff about hiring handicapped people or whatever, disabled people. And he switched that, and he switched it to white people can't get jobs, and that's why we have a shortage, whatever. And then, Tim, it wasn't just Trump. The entire chorus came in. J.D. Vance, Sean Duffy, the new secretary, came in. They all parroted this line about white people not getting. So it's all part and parcel of what you were discussing earlier, of like the South Africa thing, the Darren Beattie thing. This is just like revenge of white, anti-black, anti-brown racism. And it's amazing to me that the reporters and the media coverage of this hasn't been more forceful about holy cow, the president of the United States is invoking a baseless racial explanation for this terrible thing that happened.
Well, maybe if we had more Aryans like Darren Beattie watching, at air traffic control, we might be in a better place. I don't know. I wanted to let you cook on that because obviously it's racist and horrible, and I think that it's going to be illegal. Again, additionally, though, it will be illegal the way that they're targeting individuals who work in the government, who are career officials. We already saw the one example. I think I talked on a past podcast about Dan Crenshaw putting up a picture of a black woman and noting that she'd changed her bio to take out DEI and basically saying this woman should be fired, essentially. So there's going to be racist targeting of that. I'm sure you know somebody out there who's been a victim of identity theft or had that credit card stolen or been stalked or doxxed. This day and age, making sure that your data is private is critical. And as a person who exists publicly, especially someone that shares my opinions online, I'm hyper aware of safety and security. It's easier than ever for people to find personal information about me or you online. All this data hanging out there on the internet can have actual consequences. And that's why I personally recommend DeleteMe. DeleteMe is a subscription service that removes your personal info from hundreds of data brokers. Sign up and provide DeleteMe with exactly what information you want deleted, and their experts take it from there. DeleteMe isn't just a one-time service. It's always working for you, constantly monitoring and removing the personal information you don't want on the internet. So take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for DeleteMe, now at a special discount for our listeners. Today, get 20% off your DeleteMe plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/bulwark and use promo code bulwark at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/bulwark and enter code bulwark at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/bulwark, code bulwark. I do, though. I worry a little bit about the Democrats' response to this, and we're going to spend a lot of time all week on all of the horrors that the Republicans are inflicting on Americans. But the Democrats had an election over the weekend where they were going to choose who was going to lead the party in opposition to this. They chose a guy named Ken Martin from Minnesota. He ran what they call the DFL party in Minnesota. He seems like a fine enough person, I guess. I don't know. He doesn't exactly seem like the knife in his teeth attack dog that I might have wanted for the job. I don't know him that well, but there was leading up to the choice to his election victory. There was a debate that happened, and I want to play a clip from the debate and then discuss something that was related.
How many of you believe that racism and misogyny played a role in Vice President Harris's defeat? Okay. So that's good. You all passed.
So for people listening, everybody raised their hand. Ken Martin, the person ended up winning, was like the most excited with the hand raise, and he was like pumping his hand up to that question. Jonathan Capehart says they all win in that answer. Okay, I want to get to that in a second. There's another segment where there's a question from somebody in the audience about whether the DNC needed to have a permanent seat, at-large seat for somebody who's transgender. There's another question about whether they needed Muslim affinity groups to do outreach to the Muslims. Everybody on stage, all of the different candidates, supported both of those objectives, except for one person, Faze Shaker, who was Bernie's campaign manager. So here I am handing it to Bernie's campaign manager. But he was like, I don't know. I think maybe we should focus a little less on this stuff and obsess on this stuff a little bit less. And so anyway, Will, I made you as homework watch some of this, and I'm wondering what you think, because I was not seeing a party that learned a lot from their defeat when I was watching this candidate forum.
So Tim, I did watch it, and I want that hour back.
Sorry, I owe you one.
So I wasn't so much struck by the issues about reaching out to this and that, group in the rainbow, which obviously in the 2024 campaign hurt them to the extent that voters thought that, the Democratic Party, because it cared about transgender people or cared about this or that minority, didn't care about economics. And I don't know how to solve that problem. And I don't want to renounce caring about, the issues that affect these groups, because they actually matter. What really struck me from this forum, Tim, was the chaos. I mean, here we have an authoritarian party on the right. And what do we have on the left? We have a party that looked like, from this forum, it was total anarchy. Like they couldn't get the attendees to behave themselves and just let the forum continue. It's the old Will Rogers line about how it's not an organized political party. And Ken Martin himself had his pitch to the crowd was like, it's time. The DNC should not be putting a finger on the scale in primaries. The DNC should not be dictating things. They asked the candidates, Tim, when one candidate wins the presidential primary, should the DNC become an extension of the presidential campaign, which is normal. Yeah. That's what happens, right? And one person raised their hand, and they're all looking at each other because they're afraid. There's nobody leading the party. Everyone's trying to cater to the audience. And so if the audience cares about this or that pet issue, that's what happens. You kind of need somebody who will represent what they think the party should stand for, regardless of what the people in the crowd are saying.
Yeah. I mean, what you want from the leader of the DNC in this moment is somebody that's going to be the tip of the spear and taking the fight to Donald Trump. And there was just very little of that. Again, besides Faze, who I thought was really good, who's talking about what, and I'm trying to get him on the pod, but what he thinks the DNC could do from a communication standpoint better. There just was a lot of caring about the internal nonsense that nobody cares about besides random people who are obsessed with Democratic Party internal politics. And I understand that it's an internal debate. And I think at a time when the stakes are lower, or, when back in 1998, I don't know if it was that big of a deal who the DNC chair was, and they could all hash out their own internal disagreements. But there is a vacuum right now. And the vacuum needs to be filled by somebody on the left who is capable of being the torchbearer in the fight against Trump. And these guys just weren't it. I want to play one more clip from the outgoing. I'm sorry to obsess about the identity thing here, Will, but somebody has to say it. They need to learn from about something. And so I want to play Jamie Harrison, the outgoing DNC chair. This is him in his intro to talking about I guess it was the rules of the vice chair race for the DNC and making sure they had the right representation.
The rules specify that when we have a gender non-binary candidate or officer, the non-binary individual is counted as neither male nor female, and the remaining 6 offices must be gender balanced. With the results of the previous 4 elections, our elected officers are currently 2 male and 2 female. In order to be gender balanced, we must elect 1 male, 1 female, and 1 person of any gender.
That goes on for another 90 seconds. I spared you the last 90 seconds, but that goes on for another 90 seconds. Is this fucking Portlandia? What are we doing here? What are we doing? What are we doing here? Does the DNC need full balance between male, female, and non-binary representation on every committee? If there's a great non-binary candidate to be the vice chair of the DNC, that's awesome. I'm fine with that. Sarah McBride, this transgender congresswoman, she seems great. Put her forth. I support that. But what? Why are they? What are they doing? Stop obsessing over this shit. Stop. Just stop. Okay. You can care about representation and making sure that people are at the table without making yourself into a caricature that makes the country laugh at you. The object of the DNC right now is to build a party that can take on Donald Trump and the aspiring authoritarian that we just went over, all the things that they're doing to try to make this an authoritarian country. The opposition needs to be up for that fight, not obsessing over which committee has the right number of non-binary Native Americans. Okay, we got to stop.
Okay, Tim. Yes, but what do you do about the fact that That's bullshit. What do you do about the fact that the OCD level obsession with non-binary, 2 of this and 1 of that and 3 of that? Okay, it's absurd.
Noah's Ark here. It's Noah's Ark.
It's absurd,
here.
but
we need 2 of every race and gender. 2 of every sexual identity. We need 2 intersex, 2 bisexuals. We need 2 of everything.
Right. Okay. That's all ridiculous, but it's niche, right? It's like this. It's not the essence of the party, but Republicans managed to take that wherever it exists and make it look like that's the essence.
That is not true, though. Will, it is the essence of the party. Was Jamie Harrison up there talking about how we need to make sure that there's a vice chair that didn't go to college, or that there's a vice chair from communities that have been hollowed out by the economic crisis? I don't fucking know. Like, you show people what you care about by what you talk about. Like, that's how you show people what you care about. And the Democrats over and over show people what they care about is like, identity politics, making sure everybody has, a seat at the table. They just, I'm sorry. Like, that is it. Like, the Republicans don't do this. Like, they don't have this happening at their meetings, and people notice that.
There's crazy stuff that happens at Republican meetings.
Yeah, of course. There's other crazy shit that the Republicans have. The Republicans have plenty of baggage that they have to carry. I'm just like,
yeah.
Why? What is the value of this?
Okay, but what you've picked out that procedural vote, that 90 seconds or 2 minutes of Jamie Harrison. Okay, that's stupid. But no, in reality, they did talk about a lot of economic issues. It's just that doesn't get the attention. Maybe people think it's like exotic, and so it gets more news when they talk about, 3 non-binary whatevers.
I'm sorry. You don't think that that's happening in meetings at Democratic HQ, that there aren't people in private, like, trying to discuss on the strategy of like, oh, we got to make sure that we're representing. Like, I do think it is impacting their strategy. I don't think that there's anybody in these rooms that is like that are working class Americans that did not go to fucking fancy schools. Like, I just don't think there is. Like, I think that the rooms are full of people that like care about this like campus politics shit.
I don't think that's
on balance.
True. I don't think. I mean, if you mentioned Faiz Shakir, like he was talking about the whole Bernie.
Right, he was the last person. He entered the race at the end because he was like, somebody has to like talk different.
No. I mean, look. All right, let me put in a plug for one guy who was at that thing and didn't win. Martin O'Malley, the former governor of Maryland, right? He was in it, and he was really good. He wasn't going to win, didn't win, but he's a really good spokesman for the party. He's very good at being on message, and his message is about working people and basic material issues that they care about. But the question that your comments raised for me, Tim, is: do you think that if the Democrats talk at all about transgender, about this and that group in the rainbow, about 2 of this and 3 of that, at any point in a 2-hour forum, that is going to void everything they say about economics?
No, they can talk about it in a way that's normal. Like, they can talk about a way that normal people talk about shit. Like, if you wanted to say at that forum, like, it is outrageous that Donald Trump is kicking out of the military people that are transgender, that volunteered to serve, and that this fucking keyboard jockey that ducked the military because he had fake bone spurs in his feet is now trying to tell a patriotic transgender American that they have to be kicked out of the military, but to appease some like 22-year-old racists on Reddit. Great. Say that. Have passion in your gut for protecting people and for defending people. But like, don't just like talk about how, we need to make sure that the AANHPI committee has enough influence, and is that like, you know what I mean? Like, there's ways to talk about it that how they talk about it on Portlandia, and there are ways to talk about protecting trans people in the way that they would talk about it, at a dinner table in America.
I would love to believe. Yeah, Tim, I'd love to believe that. I just haven't seen it yet. And I would put it to you, and you tell me whether I'm wrong, that what you just said about kicking transgender people out of the military, it's better than what Jamie Harrison said. But I'm betting you that Trump and his people would just take what you said and make an ad repeating the same message that because Democrats care about transgender people, they don't care about you. And it would have the same effect.
Maybe. I don't know. But it would be fine for me if I felt like they were at least doing their best. I want them to defend people. Marginalized people should be defended. What I don't want is stupid, tokenism, because they think that it's helping people when it's actually just hurting them. Okay. Final thing. Very important topic. Luka Doncic got traded to the LA Lakers, which is madness for anybody who pays attention to the NBA. Like, probably at the worst, you could say he's the fourth best player in the NBA. He might be the second best player in the NBA. They traded him to the fucking Lakers, who always get the best people, for Anthony Davis, who's always hurt. I don't understand it. I don't like it. I feel like it's rigged. The NBA is rigged. They're upset about the ratings. I don't understand. Like, what? Or maybe Miriam Adelson, who's the new owner of Dallas. Maybe she is like sabotaging the team. This is like, what was that movie, Major League, where the owner was trying to sabotage the team? Maybe she's trying to sabotage the team because Mark Cuban used to be the owner and he's woke now. I don't know.
So just a little context here. You are a Denver Nuggets fan.
I am.
I'm a Houston Rockets fan. So what we have here is a couple of not small market, but smaller market fans complaining about first of all, why the hell the Lakers always get these people, right? Like why the Lakers don't need this. They've got how many championships in their history, right? Yeah. It's obscene, right? And this is so dumb, this Luka trade. I was like, the tariffs might only be the second dumbest thing anybody's done this weekend, because the deal in the NBA is, here's how the NBA cap works, people. You can only put 5 guys on the court, right? If you've got one of those people who, like, you can put it in the game in the fourth quarter and just say, win the game for us. If you've got one and who has to be guarded by 2 other people and to be stopped at a minimum, you never give that person up, right? If you've got a Luka Doncic, you never give them up, and you will trade anybody else to get them, because you can replace all the lower level players. You can't replace the James Hardens, the LeBrons, the Doncic's, right? And it's everybody in the league. Denver would have liked to get him. Houston would have liked to get him. Everybody would have liked to get him. Yeah. Why the hell the Lakers get him is just it's a moral outrage. It's wrong.
It is wrong. And it doesn't make any sense. It's horrible for the Mavericks long term, so I don't know why they would do it for their franchise. It might make them a little bit better this year, weirdly, just because Luka's been hurt. But it's outrageous. I do think, is it the second? It certainly would be the second dumbest thing to the tariffs if it wasn't for this little piece of breaking news I got for you. The president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, says that she has reached an agreement with Trump to delay the tariff by up to a month. So it will rise to the first dumbest move, the Luka trade, over the tariffs, if the Canada tariffs also get delayed a month after Trump talks to Trudeau. Who knows? But that's the state of play on our very stable economy with our very stable genius president. So, Will Saletan, do you have any final thoughts on that?
No, that's fascinating to me that Trump managed to bluff his way all the way to the day before the tariffs go into effect and then pull the chair. But I guess that's going to be standard practice for the next 4 years.
What a joy.